All right, what's up? What's good? YouTube, everyone in the world. How's it going today? So, I finally am getting to talk about this thing. Finally. Because I wanted to give it a week. But let's talk about The Last of Us Part 1 PC. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. So, everybody's coming out with their videos. Everybody who's either bought it and is disappointed. Uh, um, Everyone who's already like me on the bandwagon of this remake is kind of unnecessary, and I'm already not a fan of current Naughty Dog and the way that they've been since Last of Us Part 2. Um, Part 1 on PC is just, I thought personally, was a given. Because given PlayStation's current track record, God of War, uh, Horizon on launch wasn't great, but I want to say like a week or two later, it wasn't unplayable. It just had like bugs and performance issues, but it was fixed pretty quickly. Like I believe Returnal, God of War, both Spider-Man and Miles Morales, and there's another one, Days Gone. I think like they've all been pretty flawless mostly. So then we had this, and I was like, Naughty Dog hasn't done a PC port before, but they their PlayStation's one of their big money makers. They're not gonna just drop the ball like this. Apparently, I was wrong. So it's been having a huge myriad of issues, and I know personally from the graphics cards I've used before that a lot of stuff can be just user error. Okay, so let me explain. When I had a GPU, I forget exactly which one it was. It actually was a 1660 Ti and a 2060 Super. Not 2060 Super, 2060 6 GB. They both had 6 GB of VRAM. I could not play Control unless it was 1080p capped at 60. I could not play Control. I couldn't do ray tracing. At some point, the game would just crash. At some point, the game would crash every level. Master Chief Collection, Halo, I could not play Halo 2 Anniversary, no matter what I did. I played it at 720p at 60. I still cannot play it. Once I got to Arbiter's first level, right before you go to the Banshees and everything, you're inside, a lot of reflections and everything, it just crashes. I didn't know later until I got a 6700 XT with 12 gigabytes. I was playing all these games and doing more benchmarking because there's only so much I can do and only so much I knew back then that I went, oh, all of these issues were VRAM issues because my system hasn't changed besides the graphics card and everything runs fine besides the VRAM. The VRAM is like near 7 gigabytes, which is like, oh, it's a 6 gigabyte card. I know that it's going to start having problems when you're going over that. So that's my own personal issue, and I know to check those things when I'm playing games or when I'm looking for them, right? The problem is when the developer is not honest and open with you about what's going on. So I personally, and I will advise you to go. I've watched either the two videos I'll watch. I'll send you to more of a how your graphics card will stack up. It's going to be hardware unboxes video. They do a great detailed analysis of adjusting the settings, the VRAM usage for each setting, each card, and how they perform on each one. They do a great video, tons of benchmarks. Go watch them. Then I got off watching this morning Muda's Muda's video, which he brings up some like finally like someone in this big space is just bringing up points consistently about how we should be treating like this. And this at this point, things like this should be class action lawsuits. If your product doesn't work on launch and you've known about it and you have no action plan to fix it, too fucking bad. You should be sent to court. And you should lose, right? But that's my personal opinion. If you knew about it and everything. Now this is a case where we don't know any of that and it's a little up in the air. So let's go through the evidence that we have. All right. So on Hardware Unboxes video, they showed that even 8 gigabyte cards, 3070 Ti's, 20, I guess something like a 2070 or 2060 Super, 5700 XT, these 8 gigabyte cards, when this is using between 8 to 10 gigabytes, if you lower the settings and it's still like 8 to 9, you will get a more consistent frame rate. The 1% lows will be pretty bad, but you'll get a more consistent frame rate. If you try to play 1080p on high with an 8 gig, if you have a 3070 Ti and you're playing at 1080p, you're going to be having problems. Versus the 3060, which will just have less performance, but will not be bottlenecked or having any issues because of the VRAM. So that video came out a couple days ago. Apparently, there's been patches. Here is, and this is where the stuff starts to get where it's like hardware unboxes video is great, but again, this is one PC. Again, with everything else besides the graphics cards maxed out. Okay, you are realistically not gaming on a 7950X system. Was it that, or was it the 7950X3D? Whatever you're like, even if you're gaming on something that's more than an 8 core on here, like either an 8 core AMD, or I believe the equivalent would be a 10 core Intel, because it's like 6 big cores, 4 little cores, something along. They're kind of comparables, like the Ryzen 7 i7. I think the i7s are around there. Um, when of course when everything else is maxed there, you're only going to be looking at the GPU specific problems of scaling, from just rasterized performance, and the VRAM. If there's ray tracing and other things in there, DLSS, FSR, then those will depend on the graphics card. But the only thing that you can really test, which is what they did, is just GPU problems. Well, here, and I loaded this 10 minutes ago. Okay, I loaded this like 30 minutes ago, and I reloaded this 10 minutes ago. So these are all like pretty new. People are asking for advice. 12900K 3080 Ti crashes every 35 minutes. Same on version 1.6, nothing. 1650 and a 2060, and some haven't crashed yet. It's my first experience with the game. Never played it. Are you fucking serious? Job. It's the mods here, so it is. Yeah, it doesn't look like anybody is having uh, a wonderful experience. It seems like people are just like, hey, I'm not sure what I'm gonna do, but here's my specs. But most people are kind of like, why I don't want to talk about these ones, because the older and older you go down, these are about older patches. So some of these ones, 4 days and older, might be resolved. Anything you're watching that's like 5 hours, like these and up, these are all like, no, these are issues that should not be here with a 12900K and a 3080 Ti. Right? This crashing every 3 to 5 minutes could be the memory leak issue. Right? So I don't personally know what's going on with their game. I have speculation. So I want to bring you here to, this is just a list of GPUs. They're just from rasterized performance, I believe. So it's like 4090 up top, and then they start going down. I believe this is a little off, because a 3090 Ti is not weaker than a 6900 XT. Okay, whatever. Tom's Hardware is a little weird. But this just has every graphics card from top to the bottom-ish, in correct-ish order. Okay? They don't have, unfortunately, I'll have to fill in the details of which ones are 8 gigabytes or not. But here's my 2 cents. Okay, so what do I think of Naughty Dog? I don't like them personally, as of everything they handled around The Last of Us Part 2, whether it's the game itself that I didn't like, how they handled the self-inserts that were a little showed of what's been hinted behind the scenes of intense ego that controls the studio. I'm not a fan of how they handled the criticism. They essentially put everything as bigotry, which is what the game kind of did, and just pushed it off like it's just bigotry, when there are actual concerns, gameplay-wise, storytelling-wise, that just never get addressed. And I think the ending was just bad. I think they had a this is not a Last of Us Part 2 discussion. So I'm not a huge fan. I watched the show. Show's fine. Show's cool. There are parts that were great. There were things. It should have been 13 episodes. Whatever. But I'm not the hugest fan of current Naughty Dog. I love Jak and Daxter. I would love for them to get remade and redone. Last of Us is kind of cool. And specifically Last of Us Part 1, like, it's a game you watch. It really is. There is gameplay there, but like, I think you would lose more like actual gameplay wise, just watching a Resident Evil game than not playing it rather than The Last of Us. It's pretty narrative story driven. You can watch most of it. To each their own, but that's what it is. So it's like, how could this turn out, right? How did Naughty Dog get here? Well, I want to bring up Muda's video, because Muda brought up 2 points that I think are pretty consistent with a lot of other developers where they just don't test the Halo Infinite route, or they know it's a problem and they just release it, hoping that they're going to keep up with enough patches that people won't, be completely outraged. The Cyberpunk CD Projekt way. Unfortunately, neither of those are good. With Halo Infinite, if you don't have any testing, then you are playing catch-up QA testing on launch, and your game is going to, as of right now, die. Like Halo Infinite is slowly just suffocating itself day by day. You have the other way with CD Projekt Red, where you have the outrage of gamers. You potentially have a class action lawsuit on you. But why does this seem so acceptable nowadays with so many different ports? I mean, how many games have we seen like this? The No Man's Skies, the Avengers, the what was it? Wasn't that Hogwarts Legacy? It was dog shit on first couple days. It's like every PC game. It's a fucking meme now. So I'm just broken from these fucking guys. So, and the bad part about that is, like, why do they do that? Why is this such a popular thing in the industry? Well, look at the refund policies. Steam has a 2-hour refund policy. Now, imagine this. Steam has a 2-hour refund policy from launching the game. Now, if I were to do that with, say, Arkham Knight, or just say Resident Evil 4. I just buy Resident Evil 4. I happen to world record speedrun it. I returned it on Steam, right? Good for me. Whatever. But imagine if I launched RE4 and it just started downloading shaders for an hour and that took out of my refund time. Well, I'm not playing the game. So why the fuck is the refund time being taken out of this developer's shader compilation time that's not notified beforehand? I'm not getting any gameplay, right? This stuff should be done before I actually launch the game by Steam's codes, because once I launch the game, my 2 hours for the fucking refund starts. Well, guess what? If someone took an hour to launch this game and it took them, 20, especially if you're playing for the first time, 30 minutes to get out of the intro prologue stuff, you have less than 30 minutes of playtime to actually see what's going on, not including the cutscenes, because again, this is a narrative fucking game, not in addition to the beginning stuff's pretty scripted and doesn't run heavy compared to all other later parts of the game. So you don't actually know the issues that are really going to be there until it's already too fucking late. So I think it's just a way to abuse the player base, and to take responsibility away from themselves. Also to get as much money as possible because they have all those pre-orders and day ones. People have then spent all this time going past the refund date. They can't do that. They've already, it's money they've gained. They can't give back unless there is specifically like the PlayStation Store did for Cyberpunk, which was unprecedented for a PlayStation Store. All right, so why am I talking about this? Why am I talking about like the ways that this could have gone down? I personally think the way this is, because this game does run on good hardware most of the time. Okay? I think that this game may not have been QA tested, but I think that there's something else that's going on here, which would also describe other games not giving you an accurate minimum requirements, or having the minimum requirements being slightly off. This to me would make more sense. So, looking at the sheet, right? Let's get to something that has 8 gigabytes. We have something here, a 3070 Ti, right? Has 8 gigabytes. Now, if this was tested to work, some people are saying that this graphics card is not working for them, or 3070 or 2060. 2060 Super, these 8 gigabyte graphics cards, 5760s, they aren't working as intended, right? Did Naughty Dog not know about this? Because Naughty Dog put their minimum 8 gigabyte required cards, and then had their post, their tweet that was like, the minimums, you may be unable to load the game with the minimum spec requirements. And to you, that's like, what? Did you not test that? Here's what I think might be happening with some of these studios. Because they know a majority of people who identify as reviewers in the content creators spectrum, sphere, these people have top-end hardware. These are the 1% of the 1% people. These are the, what Muda calls, those top gamers, the unrealistic ones that aren't most people. So these people who are going to be getting the games, most likely buying it because it's views, money, and content for them. So that's going to equal free advertising and a free review for Naughty Dog that they don't have to pay or sponsor the game. And they see that as a win. They also see it as these people are going to be playing it flawlessly, right? So when somebody is going to be having high-end hardware, they're going to give you a better review than somebody who has like a GTX 980, 1080 Ti, just playing around with shit, RX 580, 8GB, just fucking around, you know? So that's an aspect of it, of all the people who are going to be on a major review outlet level, let alone the Shills, IGNs, Gamer Rants, any of those other fucking Kotakus, any of those fucking sites. Besides any of them, actual independent like YouTube reviews. These people have high-end hardware. So their game is going to look a lot better in all of the example videos and reviews than it actually is. So at that point, they can say, well, the user reports are a wide myriad of problems, and they're at lower-end hardware, so of course there's going to be things that are going to be in issues. Well, guess what? There's no reason a fucking 3080 Ti and a 12900K should be crashing every 3 to 5 minutes, right? That's your game. That's not the hardware. That's your fucking game. So I also think that when they're doing all the testing, making the port and everything, they also have high-end hardware. Now, do they have a 4090 to test this? Well, first off, 4090 wasn't out when this was being created. They probably had 3090s. Probably had 3090s for the creation of this PC port. Duh. Now, I'll catch that fly eventually. Here's what I think is going on. They are using in-game benchmarks or whatever on their end to see, hey, let's take the graphics card we have. Let's say they used a 3090 for all this, or a 3080 Ti for all this, or 2080 Ti for. Let's just say they used any of those for this. Okay. They probably used that, scaled down the resolution, so they went from this 3090 that was playing at 4K 60, they went down to 1080p, saw the VRAM usage consistently throughout a couple of different levels, what was being utilized on the CPU, probably, again, did not slot in a smaller CPU, so if they had a 5900 or 5950X in there, or a 12900K on Intel side or whatever, 1300K, is that the newest? If they had any of those, they didn't replace it with a smaller one to scale it. They just scaled down the resolution. So my guess is they're using high-end hardware, scaling down the resolution, just taking notes of like how much VRAM usage at 1080p, how much at 1440p, how much at 4K, how much, what's it called? How much RAM is it using? What's the required CPUs? Is it using more than 4 cores at 1080p? How much? I don't actually think... Because let's pull up, I'll pull it up. Last of Us Part 1 PC requirements. Let's just bring it up on here. System requirements. Okay. So yeah, so like right here, the minimum requirements. First off, this is not right. Is this? You know what? This is Steam. Let me get off of Steam. I want the page. I want the actual like page from them. Okay, so this is what I'm remembering. Okay, so this is all for 720p. Gotcha. Because they had another one that had like 1080p, 1440p, 720p, 4K. This looks like it. So right here, so this 1080p 60 FPS right here, which is also not true, because 2070 Super will not. I don't think is getting 60 FPS because I don't think the 3070 Ti is. So right here, what I'm saying is they had this system, this 7900 XT or 4080 or 3090 system with 32 gigabytes of RAM with this 12600K or 5900X. They had this system. They just scaled down everything else and just assumed, okay, it uses at 1080p, it's using about 8 gigabytes of RAM. So it's going up to 9 gigabytes, which you can lower quality settings. So let's say an 8 gigabyte card will take this without testing any actual 8 gigabyte cards with it. That's what I think is going on and why this is not consistent for people. At least when it comes to them specifically saying, because here I'll pull up. Just pull up their last one. I think it's this right here. No, okay, so it's not. So let me find this one. Tweets. Is it the replies? No, it's their tweets. So I want to get the exact thing. I don't want to pull up Muda's video. Huh. Okay. So I guess I'm going to pull up Muda's video. Whatever. I'm not going to, I'm not going to pull it up. There was something they wrote here. It was something they wrote about like the issues that might be going on. I don't know if it was actually Twitter though. That might be what's fucking me up. I don't know if it was actually Twitter or something else. And they put 8 gigabyte cards may not actually work with the minimum spec requirements. Like the game might not actually load or might not actually work. That doesn't make sense if they've actually tried it with an RTX 3060 or a 2070 Super or any of these AMD cards or any other AMD or NVIDIA card that has the same amount of VRAM. They didn't check them because if they did, it wouldn't have become. They would have known that issue beforehand. And then, if they had known that issue beforehand and they then released the game knowing it would not load and it would not be playable, then that I say is grounds for a class action lawsuit. And then what gamers should do now with Naughty Dog is what they should have done with CD Projekt Red years ago. Is what they should have done with, was it Hello or whoever the fuck, with No Man's Sky. What they should have done with the Arkham Knight PC port. At this point, not holding their feet to the fire is their fault, and is their fault, their problem. If the board and the fucking greedy cocksuckers up top cannot make a decision of delaying the game until it's playable, then you know what? They can be fucking sued for the money back because we don't have the money to be beta testing them, right? If they want to have a free 2-week trial to beta test our game, you're more than welcome to put that onto Steam, Epic, PlayStation, Xbox, however you got developers want to do it. But if you want to keep releasing games in these piss poor, shitty fucking states that you most likely either happened because of your incompetence and negligence or you know of and your greed got in the way, you know what? Fuck you. You should be held accountable. And if this was a first time for a developer that was really good, like if this happened for like Supergiant, I'd be like, oh shit. Or even Sony Santa Monica, like the next God of War game or something God of War adjacent or anything that's tied to those, like had this type of, like if God of War Ragnarok came to PC and was unplayable for like 2 weeks, no matter the hardware, the minimum specs, you couldn't load it. It's just it. If you had max specs, there was a memory leak, so the game would just eventually crash and not work. I'd be saying the same thing, and I love that studio and I love that game. Right? I'm not particularly a fan of Neil and the studio and the direction he's taken it. This is, I think, the last straw that I've had with The Last of Us. That I'd just be like, just fucking take him to court. This is unacceptable from a developer. This is not a finished product. And having a 3080 Ti that has 10, 12 gigabytes VRAM, it's not having that issue. Right? No FPS problems. Right? If he had a VRAM issue that most people are kind of were having that they didn't, if they don't know what they're doing, very base level PC users, then you'd be having an FPS problem because you'd be getting over that cap, and it'd be affecting, at the very least, it'd be affecting your 1% lows. No FPS problems. Crashes every 3 to 5 minutes. That's probably the memory leak, most likely. Same. You know? And this person saying, hopefully the patch is big enough next week to compress VRAM. Unfortunately, this person doesn't know that the VRAM is not the issue if there's no FPS problems and it's just crashing every 3 to 5 minutes. You know? I would be checking your VRAM. I don't think it's that. On a 3080 Ti, 12900K, DDR5, 6000, no. No, it's unacceptable. It's bullshit. So, yeah. I'm not a fan of them. This is just another dirty mark. There's a lot here in this story. It's gonna keep going on. I didn't know how bad this was, because I saw the Joel with the fucking bushy brow, the fucking Guy Sensei eyebrows, and I knew that was on Steam Deck. So I was just like, oh, okay. It doesn't run on very small hardware. Like, I would have guessed that, but again, Steam Deck runs Elden Ring. Runs Elden Ring better than the PC version does, without the frame timing issues. So, I'm just saying that it could have been scaled to work with the Steam Deck if the game was in dog shit. Right? Again, it's not going to look like your PlayStation 5 or your desktop with a 3090, but it should run on the Steam Deck, right? At 720p, does it not have 4 gigabytes of VRAM? Does it not have an equivalent CPU to a 1500X? Does it not have 16 gigabytes of VRAM? Right? This is the only questionable part, depending on how much stuff you have downloaded on there. But it meets all these other requirements. Does it not? And even if it's here, like 720p medium should not look like either that Joel picture. I'm not even going to pull them up. So, yes, I think this is interesting. I think at this point, like, companies need to be required to have QA testing. If you have no QA testing and you don't have logs of your performance when you're testing your game and making it behind the scenes, if you don't have any of that stuff, then that's shit out of luck. We'll see you in court. All right, but I think at this point, gamers should be requiring studios, especially these big AAA ones that continually to fucking let people down, some sort of law should be put into place from gamers to require studios to have this. Because there's no excuse. There's absolutely no excuse. None at all. So, it's my 2 cents. You know, fucking Naughty Dog. They're at it again. Once Naughty Dog, they go up, they go down. They go up, they go down. I don't know. They're like the Rockstar right now. I don't even want to say they're like CD Projekt Red. They're like Rockstar, very much. So yeah, so that's it. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Yeah, I really think that they're just not testing any of these specs, and that's why everybody's having problems. I mean, in addition to, yeah, the port is handled by the Arkham Knight. People handle the Arkham Knight port, which I didn't know, and I'm so glad I didn't buy this fucking game. Because if I'd known that, I would not have. So, yeah, we'll talk about it later, another time. I'm mostly going to be talking about Facebook news and Mega Man Battle Network Collection this month, so I'll talk about this if there's more stuff to actually be covered. If Naughty Dog just doesn't do the right thing and just continues to not have the game fixed and address it, then we'll see. But until then, have a nice night, nice day, wherever you're at, and I'll catch you next time.